It's 9:59. Still some people filing in as they find seats. But I want to be mindful of the time since so many of you came early. So my name is Matt Reed. I have a couple jobs with a local company here. It's a little bit of a secret. Given how we've gone to market historically, it has perpetuated a little bit of a blind spot to us being in West Michigan here, but we are a national integrator focused on a few vendors in the community. So we've got critical mass here in Grand Rapids. We have been in Kentwood for the last 15 years, but are moving to downtown Ada and are part of that improvement project there. So we're about 80 employees. We're about 36, 37 million in annual revenue. Over half of our company is engineering or is consulting or on the delivery and billable roles. And we're partnered very closely with a few vendors, again, to be deep subject matter experts. Just like the cyber bubble with all the products and all the great technology of yesterday and tomorrow, there are a ton of integrators and a ton of partners. So we're operating in our particular space. And so you could kind of, you could probably compare us to like a family hardware store. Home Depot has everything that you need under the sun, but getting help and getting someone to explain something or find a fitting or, find that product or whatever can be a challenge. Whereas you walk into our company, somebody meets you at the door, pretty knowledgeable. They're going to probably be able to find what you're looking for, and if they can't, they're going to take you to someone. They're going to do a transfer and get you sorted out. So a little bit about our company. This is the agenda that I want to go through today. I just crossed over 22 years in this business. I was an analyst in the 90s when life was really good. Life was easy. And then I went into consulting in the late 90s, survived Y2K, actually didn't sleep a wink watching my pager. But we were okay, we lived. I want to go over some things that I'm observing in the industry. There's a lot of good data being collected. Any fans of Ponemon Institute? Michigan people, you better be. So Up in Traverse City is a really good company that you need to get to know. They do a lot of really good studies. I'm going to use some of the data from that study. Cost of a data breach is their most infamous report. So again, this is what we're focused on. In 2015, Gartner started developing this place where the SOC, incident response day-to-day, vulnerability management, EDR, UEBA, forensics, GRC, they all kind of came together to represent what they were calling at the time was security, operations, analytics, and reporting. And then in 2017, they changed it to what it is now, and it's kind of that grouping of technology, and basically it's a reference architecture for what we need to do going forward now. And I'm a big student of technology adoption. I love paying attention to where companies are, where we're solving for specific things, and so I pay close attention to that. But in late 2016, we kind of realized that our company was aligning to this vision, given our vendor investments and the manufacturers that we work with. So as an integrator reseller, we're intentionally focused on fewer things, and again, in order to bring real value. So I mentioned I've been in the business for 22 years, spent 15 years in the vendor space, in between, going back and forth between the integrator roles. And again, when my career took off, life was pretty good. We were putting PCs on every desk. But I started thinking about this, and this originally started as, I'll tell you, this started as an aid for me to teach sellers what has happened in the last 20, 30 years, maybe even longer. Really all we care about, and anyone in the room that may be under 30 probably doesn't care about the PC era anymore, but the focus that we had, the things that we were solving for, where the data lived, where the workloads were. When I got into IT, we were kings. We ruled with fists, and it was great. We didn't have a lot to worry about, and nerd power. People hear me talk. I always like to cite the Jimmy Fallon, Nick Burns, your computer guy, right? Do you ever remember that bit? And if you haven't seen it, go watch it, because that's how we rolled. But even then, when I worked for a guy who was just like him, berated the users, berated the workforce, and I was 24, and I said, these people that come to me that need me are what generates revenue for the company. If this guy, I was in the design industry, if this guy can't print something and get it out in a FedEx to the engineers or whatever, or to the customer, to the client, that hurts us. So me being service-minded, not knowing what was about to happen, is really a big part of what I attribute my success in my career to. Being service-minded and the tailwind of the user takeover against IT. But if I think back to the mainframe era, things were even better then as opposed to the PC era. There were a few bad nerds then. But in the PC era, we were largely focused on preventing infiltration. The data was all on-prem. It wasn't as connected as it is now, and the threats were still garden variety, right? As we moved into the internet era and everything's got connected, not that we had to forego preventing infiltration, but now we started focusing on exfiltration when data became a currency of our time. DLP became a thing, right, Will? Friend of mine in the audience here. So in the experience era, and the internet era is when we saw the cloud 1.0, right? I know some friends and people that have been in the business a long time that tried to say, and some of the people in the room remember this, the cloud is not a thing. This was 4 or 5 years ago. It wasn't even that long ago. But the genie got out, came out of the bottle in the internet era. The data started spilling to the cloud. Just when we thought we were making some progress within the four walls, the data, the workloads are on the move. Software as a service. Threats start evolving. The rule changed from IT to user rule. I mean, crime as a service is a thing now. I can't believe that I can buy a subscription to a ransomware kit for a couple of $100, unleash it on the internet, and associate it to a wallet and just start collecting money, locking people out of their resources. And in order to defend that, it's entirely unfair that an organization has to invest to the equivalent of a military-grade fighter jet to keep me out. It's entirely unfair. But each era has compounded the problem, and I think the era of experience has a lot to do with why we're seeing everything that we're seeing now. But this cumulative workload has made it very hard for a lot of the people in this room, if you're in IT or if you're in security. It's just the cumulative workload. And I had this belief, and there's a lot double clicking, and there's a lot of rabbit holing possible within each of these eras. Again, come find me later. But I saw this about 10 years after, and I said, okay, this company's got a really good reputation for data. Talking with some analysts at Gartner, Forrester, the investments have followed the trends, right? So this comes from Ponemon Institute, Cost of a Data Breach. Again, I think this validates the belief system. organizations investing in protection and less in process, and even less in specialized training. And that's why what we're going to talk about today is very important. I feel this is directly aligned with what the enterprise is going to go and solve for next, and has already began. So it's I'm not the weather guy on the beach telling you that the storm is coming. The rain is blowing sideways, and I'm hanging on to the stop sign. So it's happening. But a lot of companies struggle to answer a very simple question. What is your mean time to identify and contain a critical cybersecurity incident? And they struggle to answer it. And this is the data that Ponemon came back with, and they tell us kind of the macro level of the story here. So the respondents indicated that it took an average of 190 days to spot that they had been breached before they see their own blood and guts on the wall. Took 190 days to figure that out. So it's over 6 months of someone inside your organization or someone's things, someone sneaking around, reconnaissance, someone could be going chainsaw crazy. And companies are still struggling to figure it out, right? So once the issue has been found, it's taken an average of 66 days to contain it and remediate the problem. Well, how's that possible? We're at a conference with all kinds of great technology that's available to us out there. Well, what's the deal, right? So things are trending in the right direction. They're trending in the right direction, albeit slowly between 2017 and 2016. And I hope that next year, in the spring, we're going to see that 2018 got us down to maybe 165. See if we can make some bets on that, what that's going to be at next year. But this is a big part of the problem. Despite all the investments made in detection and protection, security incidents are still getting missed. Every tool that you've invested in, every app, every next gen this, that, or maybe you have one of the big three in the way of endpoint security tools. But events and alerts are being generated from dozens and hundreds of products and tools, creating work, right, for a lot of you in this room. So the signal to noise ratio is way out of whack, right? So there's tons of alerts, tons of bells, tons of things. Mileage varies on how robust and mature all those different products and solutions are, how integrated they are, whether or not you're leveraging, different aspects of platform concepts to get that integration. Maybe you're really, really smart. You've got a lot of capable people. But when you're trying to navigate these incidents and look at all this stuff, you don't have visibility in a lot of cases into what it means to the business. You may be looking at a spreadsheet correlating activity, alerts, signals, and spending a half hour, 35, 40 minutes trying to trace down an IP address to a location and an owner to understand, all right, is this a laptop or is this a web server? And you're also using a lot of Office 365 products as a collaboration center. And productivity tools are good for workforce and organizational productivity. They're not good for being a response platform. They're just not. You're also leveraging your cell phones, your mobile phones, texts, conference bridges. And while you're mired down in all of this complexity, you're losing time. You're losing critical time to identify that guy going chainsaw crazy, right? So, yeah, and we had a customer recently that we hadn't worked with in a long time. We worked with them in a previous almost a previous life in technology, and we kind of stayed in touch with them. And we had reached out to them, and they had experienced a major ransomware event. So the team was just completely paralyzed. And because they had a lot of immature processes, we struggled with those process problems, trying to implement a vulnerability management lifecycle solution and get them above 75% patch compliance. But their processes were out of their control and out of our control, and we couldn't do anything. So we kind of faded back on working with the organization because we had taken them as far as we could. Well, it caught up to them. We ended up reaching out and talking to them and found out what was going on, and it was hard. It was hard to watch. It was kind of like, and at the time we didn't know it because we weren't working with them in the context that I'm talking with all of you today, but they didn't have the processes. Not only were they mired down in all this complexity, but they didn't have the processes. They didn't have the plans. They didn't have the run books. They had major problem with silos of IT. Part of IT was outsourced. So it paralyzed them. It was actually hard to watch. It was like a friend that like has a car wreck and you see him and you're like, oh my gosh, dude. We did. It was hard. It was hard to watch. So out of all the security analysts in the room, who has to treat all incidents theoretically with equal priority? Is it up to you to identify, again, the owner, what service, what asset is this? Is it like show of hands? Struggle with this notion of equal priority. Everything's important, right? And are you leveraging Microsoft Office, for example, as a collaboration platform for incident response today? No? Okay, good. Good. Surprisingly, there are a lot of companies that are. And again, a lot of great technology out there, technology adoption guy, but damn it. There's a lot of stuff out there. There really is. I mean, it's kind of like this is a marketing nightmare. This makes me just want to hang myself. I love this business. I love this industry, really. And it's a pleasure to be here sharing all this with you. But this is a big part of the problem. A lot of great tech out there on the floor, but the explosion of tools, without a doubt, is part of the problem. Some of these more integrated, more mature than others. Others I don't think will be here in another 3 years because that's maybe a little snake oil or too late or, the second to market is going to eat the leader or the innovator. There's a lot of consolidation that is bound to happen in the near term. But a lot of people in this room, you have two of everything. You have a veritable arc of security tools. And with a lot of the M&A activity, especially in healthcare, ton of M&A activity there. Banking is another hot spot. It's making all of this tool management a real problem. So despite all the investments that one could make, once you buy your military-grade fighter jet, just pick it like picking sushi off of a menu. You have to be right all the time. Another unfair piece of this, right? You have to be right all of the time. Malicious person, bad guy, only has to be right once. That's entirely unfair. And I always like to think about the skill and focus thing. Schneier coined this about two things you need to worry about. When someone says, oh, what do I need to be worrying about with cybersecurity? And this applies to a CIO or a CEO or a board. It applies to just a person, trying to have a personal life on the internet. It's the skill and focus dilemma. If you're skilled and not focused, well, then I just have to be stronger than you guys, and they're going to get you, right? If you're focused and not skilled, well, then I have to be stronger than my attacker. Person that's coming after me, I have to be, tougher and more robust and more protected than they are, or that they have the ability, right? But when you're focused and you're skilled, Now you got a real problem on your hands. So again, I mentioned I'm a hobby farmer. I have a few animals and a lifestyle because I like to work and I like labor. I hate working out, but I love labor. I love, and again, nerd moment, I'm a composter. So a confession right there. I am a fanatical composter. But I have a lot of animals and a lot of material, and I love going out there and turning that compost, man. Work, work, work. But silos are great for storing dry goods, but they're terrible for collaboration and for IT operation, really. It's hard to hide my sighs of relief when I hear someone say, yes, we have a good, in security, when I hear security analyst or team or group say, we have a terrific relationship with our asset management people. Because usually it's not the case. They may not even be in the same building or even have met face to face. An asset knows the process well. Their world is process. Despite it being around things, it is all process. So there's always been this unholy matrimony between the asset management people and security. This is the basic for risk analysis, right? So why do we deny that? Why do we let the silos limit us there? Because really these two things need to be working hand in hand. Asset knows where the stuff is, knows the way to get there, knows the process. If they're doing their good job, well, they are. And security knows what to do. So we gotta bring that together. That's ripe for a big investment in trying to drive a better relationship there. And you know, I'll confess myself. We love our tools, right? Love the tools. Despite what I said about all the tools, we love them. We love them. But the digital transformation is giving us an opportunity to rewire that disconnect and bring people together, leverage platforms, leverage integration. This is a good time for integration. We're at a terrific time for integration. We need to leverage it. Okay, IR, it's become more difficult according to an ESG study. It's likely that it's difficult in your organizations as well. And people were asked, you know, which of the following are the biggest factors making IR more difficult within a given time frame? So, yeah, there's some really interesting trends here, but it basically says, you know, shows the investments. It's kind of more along the lines of these trends. There's more alerts than we know what to do with. Difficult to figure out how to have objective prioritization. Not, I think that is important. I have put it together, and some of you are probably very talented incident handlers. And you're the unicorn, you're the purple unicorn in the skill gap that I see out there right now. Are smart security people that have got some special superpowers, but also are balanced in general enough to where they can see something and go, I know what this is, and I also know what to go. Now, if we can prevent you from swivel chairing into 10 different tools for 6 hours, we'd be getting somewhere. And some companies have started to do that. We've observed that. Another survey here, basically, you know, I identify this because what I do with a lot of these studies, truth be told, figures lie and liars figure. In some of the data, in some of these studies, everybody's getting on board with all these analytics. So there's all kinds of people getting in on this. I tend to trust fewer sources, and even when I do, I throw them against the wall for a while and vet them out and beat them up a little bit. Talk to some folks who are smart, who may know more than I do, and these were the key takeaways there. I met someone recently that called, say what you want about endpoint security or EDR or whatever, but antivirus is set and forget. Like, okay, there's a lot to talk about there, but I don't want to talk any more to you just based on what you just said. We're done. Patching. Why can't we have nice things? And look, patching is very, very difficult. I don't diminish the complexity that we still have with patch management. But there's a lot of things that you can do to reduce risk during a window of vulnerability in addition to patching. Talked to a company last week who has, on average, 40,000 vulnerabilities at a given time, but only 10% of them are their most important and most critical. Okay, just going to prioritize that, help you figure that out, automate all that change management, automate all that task assignment. You can really get somewhere, but you got to be smart. And we got to pay attention to the mistakes that those in the past have made. So this was another Ponemon joint study with ServiceNow, revealing kind of the standing gap. Tenable, I think, is out there on the floor. They've got a cool belief system that they're talking a lot about right now. It's that first move advantage, right? That 7-day window between when things are known and that first move advantage. They believe that that's your answer to patch management is to solve that piece, right? It's a different aspect of prioritization when you think about it, but among the people in this study that don't scan 100% of their environment, 50% of them, 57% I think, had suffered a breach from some sort of flaw or weakness in a well-known system. I love next-gen this and that. I love different ways of solving our problems, whether they be today's or tomorrow's or even yesterday's. But if we didn't leave the doors and the windows open, we wouldn't need death rays and sounds that kill and micron IR scanners. the airport stuff that's probably giving me cancer, that I go through twice a week. The micron scanners. We wouldn't need those things, I don't think, if we did a better job of just doing the things that we should have been doing for the last, 10 years, 20 years even. And it's often a problem with visibility. How can anyone say that they know 100% of the time what I have on the wire? It's hard to do that. Now there's companies out there that are doing it. It's probably several people in this room that are doing it, or your organization is doing it and making your job a little bit easier, or maybe you're able to sleep a little bit better at night, but it's often a problem with visibility. So if you don't have really robust discovery, anything that you're trying to do on the back end with configuration flaws, other compensating controls during a window of vulnerability, or patching the problem, visibility is huge. So patchwork needs attention, but we are at a time where we can solve this for 85% of what we need to worry about as far as known vulnerabilities. So some other challenges. Again, you're getting thousands of alerts per day, right? Many customers are managing, between 30 to 70,000 vulnerabilities at a given time, as I said. But a movement that's worth getting behind is to be able to pull, whether it's managing the vulnerability lifecycle better or managing incidents, is to pull all of that data into a single system in order to collaborate and work. Because look at the NIST cybersecurity framework, for example, right? There's a whole process that has to happen across those respective lanes, and I've got it a little bit later in another slide. But your job is not, typically as a security analyst, is not to run the ball all the way to the end. There's a remediation and a recovery phase that really is IT's job. It's the networking folks. It's your infrastructure people. It's not yours. And I know a lot of good security guys that are running further down instead of going back to the front of the line and looking for more threats or IOCs or vulnerabilities. So can you easily route information to the appropriate people in the teams outside of Microsoft Office, outside of Outlook or Exchange Online? Preserve the need to know is the other piece of this, right? Because I've seen a lot of cobbled together incident management tools where they're leveraging their IT service management platform, leveraging their tickets. And you suffer because you're unable to have effective case management to put everything that you need to know to do your job in the case. You're documenting on the side in addition to this clunky, dysfunction. You're unable to preserve the need to know. So you either hold back on what you put in the case management because these people don't need to see this. It's not appropriate, right? Separation of role and duty. Bella Padula. And I'm an old school guy. I'm kind of between worlds. My brain is between worlds because I still have an appreciation for doing things the hard way. I haul firewood to my house in the winter with a giant utility sled, even though I have a four-wheeler. I love to split wood. I don't want to stand over a splitter that I would probably get my hand caught in. Instead, I like to swing splitters. I'm farm fit. I hate working out. But automation, who's ready to automate? People ready to automate? Want to automate stuff? Okay. I see it both ways. I am seeing a terrific opportunity to automate mundane, repeatable things that we don't need human beings for. We don't need your brains or your minds for. We want to put you with the value chain. Instead of being in the rear with all the gear, we want to get you out helping drive the business, driving profitability and revenue for the company, cost reduction. That's what we need you doing. We need you doing smart things that people still have to do. The robots got to eat too, but there's plenty. They can sweep my floor. Little, DJ Roomba. I don't even know the name of this thing that we have. What we call DJ Roomba, Parks and Rec reference. So automation, all this cobbled together change management requests. It's really pretty clunky. And it's funny. I'll quote one of our brightest minds at ITS, a guy named Josh Burnson, who's literally he's like Data from Star Trek. He's like one of those crazy smart guys. When he asks, tell me about your SOC and tell me about your processes there, well, they often point to their Splunk instance, or they point to their QRadar box. And the SOC is not a SIM. SIM is a critical piece of that. The SIM is a thing. It's a place. It's not a SOC. Much like the asset friends in the asset team, a SOC is about process. Because once we have all that machine data collected and correlated into an actionable thing, there's still a coordinated response necessary from the organization. And really, it needs to be fast. So from plan to program, and I do see this trend happening a lot, DLP, plans, and privacy, it's transferring, right? It's evolving. DLP is turning into UEBA. But a lot of things are going from plan to program. Yes? It is? We're done? So we're going to go ahead and speed it up here. Looks like my clock is wrong here. Okay, so when we're talking about a response platform, these are some of the players, and this is kind of where it fits, right? So thinking about protection, the detection, the correlation side, this is really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a response platform. So improving within the framework, we need good data. I'm seeing a lot of opportunity here. Good, clean data, non-duplicative, with context, which will give you that objective prioritization. So bring this data into a response platform. The scanners are never meant for this. And then here's the key transition point. And you see this between the threat hunters, IT people. There is a transfer that's possible here that's going to give you those end-to-end horizontal plays that most companies are really have an appetite to go get. And this workflow and automation is what can facilitate that change in that whole process. A lot of stuff I'm here today. This is a good friend of mine, Clint Sand, that runs the CSS business unit at Symantec. He wrote this 10 years ago. A lot of this is stuff that, again, I've talked about now that is coming to fruition out there. Case management, context, cross-org buy-in and collaboration, and develop those playbooks, right? So here's what those productive responders are doing. Here are those mean time to identify folks that went from 190, down to went from over 200 down to 190. They're able to do all these great things and document along the way. A lot of you probably spend 6 to 8 hours documenting after your cases. This should be documented along the way. Bringing everything into a response platform will document as you work through things. So very, very powerful. And who doesn't want more accountability? We need accountability between security and between IT, and this is a way to put those SLAs or operational, level agreements, whatever you want to call them, put them in place for you. So here's where the old school guy gets an education. AlphaGo developed an AI that beat the world champion 3 out of 3 games. This is him the first game. This is him the second game. And this is him the third game. An AI kicked this guy's ass. World champion. And all it was taught was the basic instruction sets. And the moves this thing was making out of the gate freaked this guy out. No one could touch this guy. Look at this. It's a really cool story. Automate tasks today. Automate judgment tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.